This podcast is not sponsored or supported by any business or organization. The views reflected on these podcast episodes are my own. Please be aware I am not a medical expert, travel agent, or any other kind of expert. Hey everyone, welcome to the Eat, Explore, Love podcast. I'm Ashley. This podcast is based off of my blog of the same name, Eat, Explore, Love. It talks about the unique challenges in traveling around the world when you have celiac disease. Due to sort of popular demand, I decided to also record a podcast to delve a little deeper into my travels and the lessons learned along the way. This episode is a very special episode. I've always been obsessed with knowing where I've come from. I've talked about it in my Dublin episode and my Genoa episode and just in various conversations along the way. And I don't remember, honestly, if I've gotten into detail about my actual journey, but during COVID, I finally had the time to do all that research. And it was absolutely incredible. I went on to all the ancestry websites. I don't want to shout any of them out because I want them to hear this story and sponsor it. And I was able to go far, far back and do a lot of the research for my family members. I was able to get very far with my father's research, like all the way back to the 1700s. Most people are able to get back further, but that's where I was able to get. With all of that, I found out the town where my grandfather's family came from, and that's Pietrelcina. It is a little town in Italy, in Benevento, in that region, about an hour outside of Naples. And with all of that, I became that obsessed with my genealogical research. I wanted to find out more about my DNA makeup, what things was I at risk for diseases, but also, is it true that I'm genuinely 50-50 in Italian and Irish, as I was told growing up? And turns out that's not so true on my mom's side. I'm more of a mutt, but my father is genuinely Italian, 100%. So in that research, I was able to come across some relatives in Italy that also submitted their DNA. I tried reaching out to them. They were not interested in speaking with me. Then my aunt on my mother's side, my mom's sister, my godmother, she and I loved talking about it together, and she goes to these genealogy conferences every year. And I went with her. Unfortunately, it was in Ohio, so it wasn't really super helpful with New York genealogical research, but it gave me enough basic skills of what I needed to be able to further my research and be able to tell more of my ancestors' stories. For example, there's certain symbols that you'll find if your relatives came on the passenger list through Ellis Island. They used to put symbols which were indicative of their journey and gave a little bit more of a story behind why they might have come over. Things like that I was able to pick up and learn. And on that genealogy conference, I met this wonderful woman named Rosalind, and I will potentially put her information in the description in the show notes. She specializes in Italian familial ancestry. So I kept in contact with her, and she was incredibly helpful as far as helping me figure out how to get documents I needed to achieve my dual citizenship. She was incredibly helpful in other ways as well. And when my father was coming officially to Italy, I knew that he was going to want to see where his family came from, as much of it as possible. So I reached out to Rosalind again, and I said, listen, is there anybody that you know that can help us figure out and connect us to some relatives while we're over there? She connected me with someone, And that person found some relatives that were willing to meet with us and show us around. And it was incredible. So that brings us to going and visiting Pietrelcina. Like with the episode of Naples, Amalfi Coast, and Pompeii, I will read some of my father's thoughts in combination with my own in telling this story. And hopefully that's super helpful, and this is exciting. So, Pietrelcina is a very small city in the region of Benevento, Italy. My great-grandfather, Michele, was born and raised here until he immigrated to the United States at 16 years old with a cousin of his. We're still not sure exactly why he came over or what his relation to his cousin was, but they came over on Ellis Island. His mother, my great-great-grandmother, apparently owned a lot of land. On the land that used to be the family farm, my cousins that are still living in Pietrelcina have this beautiful fine dining restaurant, Boda de Chiandro. It has a beautiful view of the countryside of Italy and absolutely delicious food. They don't have gluten-free meals laid out on their menu, but they were incredibly accommodating in making their meals gluten-free, whatever meals they could anyway. My father also loved being able to have this huge ravioli for lunch. He felt his dish was absolutely delicious, as was mine. And the staff was incredible. Granted, I might be a bit biased because it's my cousin's restaurant, but they were absolutely incredible. And there's a big photo of the Iedanzas, as it's called in Italy. That's our last name in Italy and how it's pronounced. A huge family photo from after World War II on the wall, and it's really awesome. And Pietrelcina is known for Padre Pio. If you're super into Catholicism and super religious, Padre Pio is incredibly important. And my family was really good friends with his family, and Padre Pio's brother is in the photo. So if you're in Pietrelcina doing a religious pilgrimage, or if you're in the town of Benevento, or in the region of Benevento, I should say, and wanting to go check out Pietrelcina, please throw your support to my cousin's restaurant and go check out the area that I'm from. If you're unsure of the spelling or if you're unsure of anything else, make sure to check out my blog at hieatexplorelove.com. There's not much to do in Pietrelcina, but again, like I mentioned, it is a huge religious pilgrimage spot as far as it's the birthplace of Padre Pio. There are a lot of landmarks in relation to his birthplace and important places that he lived and important places as far as his connection to religion and how he became Padre Pio. My cousins actually all were graced with Padre Pio's presence and his blessings at their communions. And those were really cool pictures to see. I'm not a super religious person, but I do respect faith. And it was really nice to see landmarks that are so important to so many around the world. My father and I came to Pietrelcina specifically to see family. So we got to see the place where my great-grandfather, my father's grandfather, was born. We got to see the places that they lived and basically got to have a pretty good idea of how they went about life. I would recommend perhaps seeing the city of Benevento if you're not someone that's particularly religious. I don't have any particular landmarks for you since I've never been, but Pietrelcina is a very small, beautiful town, but not much to see if you're not interested in Padre Pio, if I'm being quite honest. Still gorgeous views of the countryside of Italy, and just a nice, quiet, quaint town to just sit and walk around in. So here are some of my father's thoughts of his experience while we visited Pietrelcina. He felt that it was a beautiful, quaint, small town and that it had just that timeless feel to it. It looks like it hasn't really changed much since his own grandfather walked those streets. Perhaps change as far as the house where his grandfather was born in are now souvenir shops. It was incredibly clean and not many options for foods or snacks or shopping in the actual town itself. He felt that it was an awesome experience knowing that this is where his family is from. It was emotional for him knowing that this is where his grandfather lived and walked those same streets. And yeah, his aunts, uncles, cousins, and father didn't get to have that same experience, and so he was very appreciative that he did get to have the experience. According to my father, we've only known this in the last 10 years, so he always wondered perhaps if we had known sooner, maybe this could have been a pilgrimage that more family members could have made over time. But I feel we're starting fresh, and hopefully my cousins and family members and future generations will now have the information, and if they're interested, that they now can go. Now, here are my thoughts from the experience, and I'm just going to read most of what I read in my blog post. When I was 13 months old, my baby brother was born. A few weeks later, my paternal grandfather, my brother's namesake, passed away. Many of us grandkids on this side of the family never got to know our grandfather, never got to hear his stories, never got to know if he had a sense of humor or not. The only things I knew about him were how much he loved my mother. So I know the man had good taste. But for me, there was still something missing in his passing. I am a forever student, and I love learning about people, and it felt like there was a loop that would never be closed with my grandfather gone. I feel like my grandfather was the prime motivation for my genealogical research. And I spoke about how I didn't feel connected to my family roots in Genoa and only felt a slice of them in Dublin. But in Pietrelcina, I was looking for something else, perhaps because Pietrelcina represented the family member of mine that had come and gone before I even got the chance to know him. Yet, Grandpa was ever present in my father and brother, and in the faces of my uncles. I mean, they all look exactly like my grandfather. Through a crazy series of events that I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, I was able to connect with my cousin Angelo, and he still lives in Pietrelcina with his family and his brother and his brother's children. And he knew our family history all the way back to 1600s. So he even knows the town that we came from before Pietrelcina. They were so gracious, so kind, and being willing to meet up with my father and myself, and they gave us a tour of the city where we came from. I got to meet my cousins of all ages, shapes, and sizes, and they were all so incredibly wonderful. Their generosity knew no bounds. Getting to hear their stories, getting to know their personalities, which were crazily so similar to our family in New York. My cousin Antonio set up a beautiful day, and it lived up to all of my expectations. I hope I never forget their generosity, their kindness, their magic, and I hope one day I'm able to pay it forward and I'm able to do this for them if they ever decide to come to New York. I felt complete again in this family reunion. My heart expanded. I can see my father rolling his eyes at me now for my feelings about all this, but I'm thankful. My father and I have a relationship that has a lot of severe ups and downs. But overall, I'm glad that him and I got to share this experience, and I hope that I get to share this experience with my siblings and other family members. I learned later that my grandfather probably wouldn't have been into this adventure. He was evidently never curious about where his own father came from or that piece of his history. But in spite of what I did actually feel closer to my grandfather than I ever did before. And I hope, even though it's not something that he would have been into, that his spirit was with us during that time and it made him smile. I hope that those of you listening to this are now inspired to go look into your family history, are inspired to go have this experience of your own, because it's definitely worth it if you're able to make it as special as possible and connect with some long-lost family members. Now it's time for the wrap-up questions. Do I feel the city is safe for those with celiac? No, I'm sorry, not necessarily. I got really lucky that I knew the owner of the restaurant that we went to. Favorite place to eat? Well, of course, it's my cousin's restaurant, Boda de Chiandro. I think that's how it's pronounced. What was my favorite memory from the experience? Oh, getting to talk with my cousins, and we had this awkward thing where he didn't speak any English and I didn't speak any Italian. I spoke very little Italian. I knew enough to kind of pick up on what he was saying, but we kept talking back and forth via Google Translate on our phones, and it was a really beautiful, awesome thing, and I felt bonded to him because of that. Is this a city to vacation to or live in? I think it's really nice to visit. I think if you're a small town gal or guy, then Pietrelcina would be perfect for you. Is this a place to relax or be active? Relax. How are the people? So incredibly awesome and kind. Most of the population of Pietrelcina are my family members, so I'm definitely biased, but they were incredibly awesome and kind. So that's all I have for Pietrelcina. Hopefully this was a wonderful episode for you to listen to, and hopefully it inspired some journeys that you're going to set up for yourself in the future. As always, till next time. Thank you for joining me this week for all the fun journeys and lessons learned on my big adventure called life. For more information on the different cities discussed, check out the blog posts on hieatexplorelove.com, posted every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you have any questions or fun stories to share, feel free to reach out at hieatexplorelove@gmail.com. Until next week, remember to eat well, explore the world, and love yourself. See you next time. This episode is produced, scripted, and edited by me, Ashley. Special thanks to Sarah Mientka.